Thank you.
Mr. Hamlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually got several questions here. Is it possible to go back to the first slide?
Sure, absolutely.
Next one.
Next one, okay.
Okay, that one.
So it says the U.S. partnership with KDOT, 375 million, city 61 million. So could I assume that the 61 million would be the city portion of the cost share?
I don't think you can. It's not that straightforward. It's not a percentage in that regard. Every partnership that we've done with KDOT has been negotiated. It could be that we did design of a certain section, they funded construction. We did participate in construction over the last 20 years in various circumstances, but you cannot take that straight 61 divided by 375 and say that's going to be the percentage of the city's cost. Whatever it would be a negotiated agreement that would be brought forward to the city council, but it did not work that way in any of the previous arrangements. That's not a flat figure.
Okay,
Mr. Ham.
then could you explain a little what these numbers are?
No, yes,
Well, go ahead.
I will pull up, I do have a graphic that I believe could help. These are the improvements along US 69 that represent that $375 million investment. And as Bill pointed out, I think to further that, you'll see that some of these projects, you know, they ranged from improvements to add lanes. Some of them were collector-distributor roads. Some of them were actual local improvements. We had some improvements along Quivero. We had improvements along 95th Street, Antioch, College, 103rd Street. So there was
It's
a lot of local construction that went
local
on
roads,
with
too.
that. So
Right.
it's hard for me to be able to tell you exactly where. I'm sure that we could get those numbers for you,
Okay.
but once again, that correlation of exactly how to correlate that to this particular US 69 south of I-435, it would be a little, to me, it would be probably a more case-by-case basis on what that
Okay.
turns out to be.
In some cases, we actually managed the project.
Right.
The city engineer, when I was city engineer, we actually managed one of the projects along I-435 and US 69. Did all the staff work, all the engineering, managed the design contract, acquired the right-of-way. We did all that in partnership with KDOT as well.
Well, that kind of leads into my next question. And I'm looking at the executive summary that was provided to us. And it shows the scenario 2 partial build, which I think we've been kind of focused on here a little. And it shows the total cost of the express lane being $299 million. And then it shows the cost of the toll-free lane being $258 million. So obviously, that's a difference of $42 million. Is that a cost difference in, say, setting up the equipment and whatever's necessary to make this a toll road?
Correct.
Yes, and we'll have our consultant answer that.
Sure. So the difference between the toll-free configuration and the toll configuration is several of the things that you just described. There are costs for installing the roadside toll equipment, the gantries and cameras and K-tag readers and things like that. The other thing that is contributing to that difference, though, is in a scenario where it is not tolled, there is a potentially logical scenario where you do not do a full mainline expansion all the way down to 151st. You could potentially get by for a while with just having auxiliary lanes, say, on the outsides between 151st and 135th Street. In the tolled scenario, though, there is a big 151st is a sizable traffic generator, and you would like to create a scenario where they can actually get into the express lanes. And so there is that additional mainline expansion that goes all the way down to 151st Street, essentially to provide that opportunity for that influx of traffic to get into the express lane. So
Okay.
it's a combination of toll infrastructure costs, but it's also some additional lane pavement.
Well, I guess you can probably see where I'm heading with this, but, and this would all, I fully support taking this to face to studying, getting more information, but where I'm heading with this is if it's $42 million cheaper to not do a toll road, and let's say the city cost share is 50 million, are we only 8 million off? By choosing the free route?
Well, you are certainly by the math, but I will tell you, cost shares of 50 million for one-time constructions is just financially infeasible for the city. The cost shares that we've done in the past were projects over 20 years that maybe we did 7 million here, 8 million here, of that nature. So a one-time cost share of $50 million is just financially
Well, that's what I'm
infeasible.
saying is, if we save the state 42 million, do we get credit for that? By not going with a toll road?
Yeah, I think by your math, that certainly is an option.
Yeah, and is that something that'll be looked at? That is the toll road so expensive that by eliminating the toll equipment, we essentially make our city contribution?
But we'd need to look at the revenues also, and that would delete the 290 million in revenues.
I think the assumption is that KDOT has 200 and whatever number was, 200 some million available. The tolling provides some access to build those toll roads, and so they would have to have that available, but they certainly can answer that. But I think your option is one that is certainly open and still open as we move forward.
Right, and that was part of my question. I mean, if we toll it, are we looking to recover the 42 million in tolling equipment plus the city cost share? Or you see where I'm going there? Is this, are we going to build a toll road just to cover the cost of the tolling equipment?
So the anticipated revenue being generated off of this is, based on the data that we've had and the analysis that's been done to date, sufficient to cover the costs of the initial capital of the tolling equipment. So there's no question that building a toll road does have some additional costs for things like the toll equipment, but it also comes with the upside of having a potential source of revenue, whereas if it's constructed as a toll-free facility, there isn't that opportunity to generate the revenue. So based on what we've looked at to date, though, the anticipated toll revenues do cover the costs of operating the facility and collecting the tolls and things of that nature, and would likely contribute to a portion of the upfront capital costs for the tolled infrastructure.
Right. Well, I guess when you say revenue, what revenue for what purpose? I mean, if we were to not do a toll road and select here's $50 million for our portion, would the state maintain it at that point? And there'd be no need for revenue from our end.
Well, the state will maintain it all. I think the additional revenue would help them maintain it over a course of 30 years. I think that's an assumption that they've made in the presentation, but they would maintain it. The city's not going to maintain it. We don't maintain those roads today. So, and we may not be clearly understanding the question, Mr. Hamlin.
Well, I guess, I mean, what I'm saying is, if we go with a toll road, then the revenues are going to be used to maintain it. If we don't use a toll road, does the state maintain 69, correct?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, then the need for the revenue would not be necessary,
Well, they would
from
need.
our point of view.
True,
From
true.
Overland Park.
But they would need additional revenue in the future to maintain all of 69 to include that toll lane, which is additional lanes, right? So,
Yeah. Okay. I guess the other, that kind of answers my question. In the Phase 2 study, like, for instance, I saw I think the first plan had a completely different merging option when it comes to Blue Valley Parkway and 69. It had a flyover. It separated the 135th traffic. It just looked like a much better system. Is there a time in this Phase 2 study where we could talk about a scenario 1.5, where you use the flyover, but still stop it at 151st?
That is option two. That is option two.
They look different to me. Weren't there two different ways? That scenario 2 doesn't have the flyover and separate the 135 traffic?
No, I think, okay, yeah, all right.
So the scenario 2 does have a simplified configuration in the
Right.
southbound direction between Blue Valley Parkway and 135th Street. We would anticipate still building the flyover, though, with scenario 2 and bringing that traffic on to the right side of the roadway as
Right.
opposed to the left. It just would come on as essentially an auxiliary lane adjacent to the main line as opposed to a separated collector-distributor road system.
Right.
However, that's just the configuration that's been looked at to date. There's certainly opportunity to, as you said, consider a scenario 1.5 where some of those other improvements are brought.
Yeah, because I saw the
into-
one was pulling the traffic off 69 and separating it well before 135th, so there was no merging issue there.
Yeah, there's no question that configuration will operate better. It's simply a matter of trying to find the right balance of improving the operations and trying to find ways to reduce the cost in the near-term
Yeah.
project. But
So
certainly,
I guess my question is, when would these discussions take place?
certainly as part of the phase 2, you define in much more detail the scope of the improvements in a near-term project.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
I'll just remind the council, we've got 15 minutes left, and there's a number of people who'd like to speak. Mr. Lyons.
I'll try to make this as brief as I can, I guess, but I've got several questions I want to ask. We talked about that there's a $100,000 upfront payment the city would make in order to do this Phase 2 study. Are there any other upfront costs that would be paid by the city if we go forward with a toll express lane as we're describing either Phase 1 or Phase 2? Are there other costs the city would incur? Or is the
For a Phase 2?
I think that the $100,000 would be our share of the Phase 2 study. I think in discussions with KDOT that if we went further down the road, that they would take the lead financially, and that tolling would be any future city contribution, is the discussions that we have had with them, and I think that they have stated. So I don't foresee beyond the $100,000 today any additional costs for the city. As of today, I don't foresee that, and I
Okay.
don't think KDOT foresees that.
That's good. Then, can you talk to, just to be clear on one of the reasons why we're looking at this as a toll solution, if we do nothing and we decide to go forward just to plan on expanding the highway as free lanes, can you give me a time frame of when that could potentially occur versus the benefit we get out of going down this path of an express toll lane, and when that project would be done? And I know roughly, I know this is just, you're just giving me a rough guess.
Yeah, I mean, the legislature is speaking right now, so it would be difficult for me, it's difficult for me to guess how this session's going to come out. But I think this moves it up, several years in the development of delivering this project.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.